Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the other places people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? The answer to every one of those questions is real simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free, and it is ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors too, so you can get paid to podcast. The reason why I love Anchor is because of its ease of use, its great interface, and it distributes my podcast evenly across the board. So, if you've always wanted to start a podcast, make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start. to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Shade and Shit Talking Podcast. I'm your host TK, and as always, I thank you guys for tuning in. So, this past week, we had a lot of action going on. A lot of action between the whole surviving R. Kelly saga and the government shutdown. There has been a lot of back and forth between people, a lot of talk, a lot of hot topics, a lot of hot takes. And sandwiched in between all of that was another story that is very huge in my opinion. It's huge for the person involved, first and foremost, but the ramifications of this is very far-reaching, and it touches so many different things. So, this past Monday, the supporters, people including myself, of Miss Cyntoia Brown celebrated. Now, on this day, Governor of Tennessee Bill Haslam, he granted her clemency after she served 15 years in prison. Now, about, maybe 3 episodes ago, 4, whatever it was, I talked about this in full, the curious case of Cyntoia Brown. And I talked about Haslam's record of granting clemency, and I had a high hope that he would do the same here, and he did. And I couldn't be happier. A lot of people couldn't be happier. Myself, like others, are super ecstatic about his decision. And, I think it's justice. Although it's justice delayed, it's justice nonetheless. Because she does not officially get out until August the 7th of this year, my birthday. So that'll be a nice present as well. And a lot of people are wondering why she has to sit for so long. Matter of fact, there's another petition that's out for people to sign to expedite her freedom. Now, I'll talk about that in a minute. I'll give you information on that in a minute. But again, let me just give a quick rundown of her situation. So in 2006, she was arrested and tried as an adult and sentenced to life in prison for shooting and killing a guy by the name of Johnny Mitchell Allen, a guy who paid her for sex when she was 16 years old. Now, she had been out on the streets, out on her own. She was forced into this life by a quote-unquote boyfriend by the name of Cutthroat, who used to beat her and rape her. And this particular night, Allen picked up at a Sonic drive-in, and she killed him when she saw him reaching for a gun while they were in bed together. That's pretty much it. So it's unconstitutional to give her original sentence to juveniles, which was what all this was about. Now, just looking at Cyntoia's situation, we have to realize that she is just one of many thousands of people in that spot. Thousands of juveniles who are in prison for life. Thousands of young females who have been sexually abused and trafficked and all of that. And there's like a lot more work to do. There's still, so many other black women and girls who are caught up in the same system with very similar cases. So, we have to think about this when we are going about our everyday lives. This, don't get me wrong, this is a huge victory, but it's so many more battles that need to be fought in this war against a war against women, basically. Now, she is one of, like I said, many black women and girls who land in the criminal justice system, and it is done at a very disproportionate rate compared to her white counterparts. Black women are in prison twice as much as white women. This is according to a sentencing report, 2018 report by the Sentencing Project. Black girls are 3.5 times as likely than white girls to be placed in juvenile detention also. Now, there has been progress. From 2007 to 2014, the number of young people that's tried in adult courts has dropped 48%, from 175,000 to almost 91,000. This is according to a 2017 report by the Campaign for Youth Justice. Now let me just pump the brakes real quick before I, go off into, the other aspects of this case. Let me just say, something about Cyntoia herself. I personally don't know her, have never spoken with her, but I have followed her story quite closely. And I have to say that given all that she's gone through in life, in her situation in prison, she is a remarkable person. A lot of people would have just laid down and just let the system engulf them, and that's it. I'm in the system, fuck it. But she didn't. And her will to fight and her ability to adapt and take this situation head on is what ultimately helped her get free. I'm gonna read you an excerpt from what Governor Haslam wrote himself, because he praised her efforts to rehabilitate herself, and that was the main reason that he cited that she should be released. He said, and I quote, "Imposing a life sentence on a juvenile that would require her to serve at least 51 years before even being eligible for parole consideration is too harsh, especially in light of the extraordinary steps Ms. Brown has taken to rebuild her life. The transformation should be accompanied by hope, so I am commuting Ms. Brown's sentence subject to certain conditions." Unquote. So while she was in prison, she obtained her GED. She obtained her associate's degree from Lipscomb University, I believe. And in May of this year, she is set to obtain her bachelor's degree. She also volunteered as a mentor to troubled youth in prison. And I mean, like what she did went on and on and on, showing what type of person that she is, and showing that with the right amount of help and care, what troubled people can become. So, like I said, she gets out in August, and hopefully she can get out earlier. But there's certain things that she must do in order to get out, and there's certain things that she must continue to do after she gets out. She's on parole for 10 years. She must find a job. She must either continue her education, one or the other, and all the other things that goes with being on parole. I personally don't know about it, but she has a lot of things that she has to do, and I'm hoping that there are people who's there in her corner to help her through all of this, help her navigate through these landmines when she gets out. Now, like I said earlier, her story is basically the story of many young women. And her story highlighted to me a very disturbing thing. It showed it painted these victims of sex trafficking in a different light, a wrong light. Like, first of all, they called this child a prostitute. She was charged and arrested for prostitution. But by definition, a child cannot consent to sex, let alone prostitution, right? So that was like one of the biggest things to me. Like, in her court documents, again, she was referred as a prostitute. Throughout her trial, she was referred to as a prostitute rather than what she truly was, which was a victim of sex trafficking. She was a child who was being sold by a violent pimp and bought by predators. They even said that the prosecution even said that, and it was, erroneously asserted that she wasn't a victim of trafficking. But there's this act, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 1999, that states basically any minor under the age of 18 who is induced, and however the case may be, by a pimp or a family member or whatever, kidnapper, who is induced to commit an act of commercial sex, prostitution, is a victim of sex trafficking. And that's what she and so many other of these young black women are. Now, that what also plays into that is something called credibility bias, where many people, both law enforcement, non-law enforcement, find it very, very difficult to believe the word of a young girl of color. And we saw that with this Surviving R. Kelly shit. I mean, it's on full display. Whatever platform you get on, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of it, you see it, and it's in full force. You've heard they're fast and they're lying and where are the parents, and these young girls are just out for money and all of that blah 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 bullshit. We've heard it. And it is also should be noted that that there are also other racial stereotypes that was involved in her case and many other cases. You know, they say that there's a stereotype that girls of color are less innocent and more sexually mature than their white peers. We've seen this. I know I've heard people talk about it. Black girls are viewed as less innocent than white girls. According to a report from Georgetown University Law School Center on Poverty and Inequality that was released last year, it found that black girls, particularly those between the ages of 5 to 14, are seen as more sexually mature and know more about adult topics than white girls in the same peer group. And this leads to what is an experience that's called adultification. It also leads to the idea, the reality basically, that they are not afforded the same childhood benefits as whites. And what this ultimately does, what it ultimately does in a nutshell, it pretty much that says that these black girls, these young black women, young black girls, they are viewed as needing less support, needing less nurturing, and needing less comfort. And that's something that we have to tackle head on as a community, because I honestly believe that is true. I'm seeing it in the forums. Children getting blamed for what an adult monster did. And in the end, you know, this adultification is dehumanizing these young black children, these young black women. It's robbing them of everything that makes, you know, their childhood. It is robbing them of their innocence. It contributes to a narrative, a false narrative at that the transgressions of a black child are intentional and malicious. And instead of it being, you know, immature, you know, something that a child would do, it's viewed differently. It's viewed as being adult-like, and that's bullshit. Now, that study went on to talk about a lot of different things and how it affects them in their everyday life. If I can, I'll drop the link, hyperlink in the description so you guys can read it yourselves. But, you know, it goes on to talk about how these perceptions could possibly be contributing to the different juvenile justice charges that they face. It talks about how they are more than likely, 5 times likely to be suspended from school, 20% more likely to be charged with a crime. It talked about how their findings show that the pervasive stereotypes of black women as hypersexualized and combative are trickling down and reaching the schools and the playgrounds and all of that, and it's robbing these black kids of the protections that they deserve. Very, very interesting stuff. And like I said, some of the stuff in this study was on full display in all the forums after surviving R. Kelly. Now, what another thing that was on display that I noticed was how that one particular story of surviving R. Kelly turned into an indictment on all black women, all black men. I mean, some of the arguments and back and forth that we've seen and witnessed was just crazy. And people need to put this whole situation into perspective. Like, this is not a all or nothing type of thing. Whether it's R. Kelly's situation, Bill Cosby's, Harvey Weinstein, just whoever you name, it's not a all or nothing situation. We have to learn to have nuance with these types of things. Like, we have to learn to put certain things in certain perspective and take that case for what it is, a singular case, and not try to align it with everything else. Because, you know, like I said last week, every woman that was involved in that isn't lying. Just like every woman isn't telling the truth. But I read a article today by Angela Dennis. She's one of the a very talented writer who contributes to a lot of, you know, different forums, and she's one of the writers, Black with No Chaser. She has a very, very interesting, very thought-provoking, thoughtful take on the situation, and I hope to get her on to explain it herself. But, you know, she talks about it in a different light. You know, she talks about how all black men are not on trial with this situation. You know, and honestly, that's kind of what I see it's turning into. Like, it has turned into a witch hunt by not just the media, but our own people. They are reaching and grabbing at everything to justify what this man did. And with that being said, I don't give a fuck who it is. If they have molested kids, they have raped kids, sexually assaulted women, whatever, I don't give a fuck who it is. They wrong. And they should be dealt with whatever consequences are available. Period. But all of this, well, he did it, so this guy's all right, it's some nonsense, straight bullshit. But, you know, in her article, she goes on to talk about how the media is coming out with different things. Like, you have the Surviving Neverland or whatever it is coming out, talking about Michael Jackson and his situation. And, you know, she asked 3 questions that I'm going to put out to y'all. I want y'all to think about. I'm not going to answer them here, but I'm going to just put it out there concerning this whole situation. First question is this causing a rippling effect? Second question, is this putting all men of color on trial? And finally, are we in any way contributing to this with the tone of our dialogue? So, I want y'all to read those 3 questions over and over in your mind and honestly answer them. Because, you know, the turn that this thing is taking is not a good turn. It really isn't. It's taken away from what the real focus, I believe, should be on. You know, the real focus should not be on pointing the finger at every single goddamn person for every little perceived transgression, or turning this into a witch hunt to prove your point about one guy. That's not where I'm at. Like, if it comes out and this next person's on trial, then we'll deal with that when it gets there. But right now, instead of creating problems, we should be actively searching for solutions, in my opinion. Like, because this whole Cyntoia Brown case, this whole R. Kelly case, and all the rest of them really collectively show we have a big problem in this country. It's everywhere, but everywhere is not our concern right now. We have a big problem in this country when it comes to protecting women, protecting children. We have a big problem when it comes to our justice system and penal reform. We have a huge problem that we need to take head on. We need to face it head on. And it should start today, not tomorrow. We should start tackling this shit today. Now, before I close out on this whole conversation, I just want to go back because I told you guys about the petition for Cyntoia. It was launched on a site called Care2, CARE number 2, Care2. And this petition is, again, calling for her expedited release. As of the other day, it had 22,000 signatures on it. And the campaign reads, it has a statement that says, if Haslam recognizes that her life sentence was unjust, then why must she spend one more day in prison? So, if you get a chance, go check it out. Sign on to the petition and see if we can help free this woman. So, again, I'm happy she's free. I'm happy that she won her fight, and there's so many more others who need help, need somebody to fight on their behalf. Now, I really don't know what type of impact that Cyntoia's case will have on criminal justice reform overall. But I hope that what has happened can serve as a catalyst to change, what's going on. I hope that, this can be a conversation starter that revolves around examining our sentencing policies and sentencing guidelines, especially regarding young people, especially regarding young black people. And I hope it all leads to the development of a system that is much more rational, that is much more caring and shows more empathy to individual situations instead of painting black folks with a broad brush. And instead of just focusing on punishing these people, it will be one that's focused on the rehabilitation of these people and take into account their realities. Because right now, it doesn't. So, that's it. I think that's what the focus needs to turn to. Rehabilitation, reform of the criminal justice system, and most importantly, especially right now, reaching out and protecting our young black girls, young black women, period. That's what I'm on. I hope you guys on the same thing. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gather around for this week's episode of Colonizer Nonsense. My first Colonizer Nonsense moment takes me to an unknown Target store where the prices are high and apparently so was this bitch. Headline: woman goes on racist tirade in Target, starts throwing merchandise at customers. God damn. Now, this video surfaced on Twitter, I believe, and it shows a woman yelling racial slurs and throwing merchandise at other customers in this Target store. Now, in this video, this woman can be heard screaming. I'm talking about screaming. You fucking saying niggas. You fucking pieces of shit. Fuck all of you. All of you are shit. Man, what the fuck is wrong with these people, man? What in the actual hell is wrong with y'all? Now, shortly after this woman began shouting, she started to pick up merchandise and throw them at the customers. The security guard, he ran over and he tried to physically restrain the woman, but he struggled mightily to get this woman down. And while he was handcuffing, she did what we thought she would do. She started screaming for help. Oh, now she's the victim. We've seen that playbook before. We know it all too well. Now, not only was she screaming for help from these same people that she just called fucking saying niggas, she also started screaming, "I'll leave if you let me go." Wow. So, what we saw in this video is this woman, A, starting shit, fucking with people, B, assaulting people by throwing merchandise and hitting them with it, and C, soon as she get caught, she goes into her crocodile tears, playing the victim, screaming for help. Now, where have we seen that before? Everywhere, actually, but I digress. My next Colonizer Nonsense moment takes me to an unknown town in Oregon, where if that was me, this bitch would have got knocked smooth out. Headline: white woman spits, slaps, screams the N-word, and pulls knife on black family over parking space. God, so we can't park while black? Fuck. A woman was caught on video screaming the N-word and pulling a knife on a black family in an Oregon parking lot over a parking spot. Now, the woman who was recording, one Miss Amora Roberson, recorded this irate woman attacking her family. Roberson was in her car with her 15-month-old daughter, her boyfriend, and an aunt doing some Christmas shopping, when this crazy-ass woman pulled into the parking spot next to him. Now, she said that it all started because her aunt had parked crooked. Now, listen, I pulled up in parking lots and seen people fucking up, taking up 2 spaces. I ain't never got mad enough to call them niggas or crackers or whatever else you want to call them and pull a goddamn knife on them. It ain't that serious. I just moved to the next spot. Now, she said that this woman was basically trying to get into their car. And from the video footage that I saw, this bitch was crazy. But she wasn't too crazy because she knew when to get in that car and leave. Listen, man, if it's that serious to you, you need to stay at the fucking house, because you gonna run up on the wrong one. And because you had that knife and you tried on the wrong one, somebody gonna put a hole in your ass and go home and live the rest of their life out like it's nothing. Y'all better stop that shit, I'm telling you. My final Colonizer Nonsense moment takes me to Wichita, Kansas, where I'm pretty sure if it was you in this spot, your ass would be in jail for what he did. Headline: white Kansas man arrested for kicking black toddler doing racist rant. Y'all can't see my face right now. I'm just stunned at looking at this screen. A white former fashion model was arrested after kicking a 1-year-old black boy at a Wichita grocery store while shouting racial slurs. 1-year-old Javi Fry was with his mother and his sister walking into a dealer's grocery store when this guy, for no reason, attacked him. The police and witnesses said that the guy was walking in and kicked this child from behind, knocking him to the floor. He then went on a racist tirade in the store and shouted nigger while repeating that he was a white supremacist. Now, he was charged with felony attempted aggravated battery for kicking the boy. Now, the only reason he was charged with attempted was because the child was not injured. But had there been great bodily harm, he would have been charged with plain aggravated battery. Well, listen, man. If that was me, he'd have probably been charged with attempted. Nigga, I was getting the charge with full-fledged battery, probably murder, because I'd try to kill his ass. Kill him. Now, the Wichita chapter of the NAACP wants this to be prosecuted as a hate crime. And honestly, judging from witnesses' statements and this dude's own words, that should be a goddamn slam dunk. But we know how, the American justice system is. It ain't always fair. Well, to us, it ain't never fair. Now, he also has felony charges from other cases. He's charged with felony possession of methamphetamine. Oh. Nice. And he's also charged with misdemeanor criminal trespassing. So, he should have been in jail. But I tell you what, you kicked the right one, because you kicked mine, goddammit. We both going to jail.
You mad. You big man.
Welcome to my new segment called Why You Mad? Now, in this segment, I will either do one or two things. I will talk about a subject that I found that pisses me off, and I will tell you why I'm mad about it. Or I will find somebody else who's angry as fuck about something and try to decipher why they so mad. So, with that being said, I figured the first go around, I'll start with myself. Now, I read this story the other day, and I ain't gonna lie, man, it pissed me off. Got me hot. Now, I don't know if you've seen this, but over in Arizona at a nursing facility, a woman who was in a long-term vegetative state gave birth to a baby boy. Now, that's crazy as hell within itself. Now, this woman has been in a coma since she was a 14, 15-year-old child, and some disgusting, rotten, nasty, dirty motherfucker raped this woman, and now she has given birth to a baby. Now, what makes it even more insane is that the hospital staff, they said they had no idea that this woman was pregnant. She showed no signs. None at all. Now, in the call, one of the nurses tells the paramedic on the line that she said, and I quote, "One of the patients just had a baby and we had no idea that she was pregnant and that the baby is turning blue." Now this woman who had this baby, she had been a resident of the facility since she was a toddler of about 2 or 3 years old. And her last exam from a doctor took place in April of 2018, more than 8 months prior to her delivering this child. So now they are going through and they are testing every male who's worked there. They're probably going to go back and find every male who has worked there if they left in the last year and figure this out. Like, that shit's crazy. You got somebody who can't defend themselves, can't protect themselves, and they have been violated by a goddamn monster. And with all this Me Too shit going on, and R. Kelly shit, and Catholic Church shit, all this other shit going on, for something like this to happen is very disturbing. And it's got me pissed off. And that's why I'm goddamn mad.
You mad? You big mad.
This week in sports starts us off with the end of the college football season, where this past Monday we had the national championship game between the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Clemson Tigers. And man, woo, Alabama, you got your ass whipped. Listen, Clemson beat Alabama worse than those cops beat Rodney King. Nah. They beat Alabama's ass worse than my mama used to beat me when I used to be quote-unquote acting grown. Nah, Clemson beat Alabama's ass worse than Diamond did running when she tricked Evan into being the only girl dancing at Junior's bachelor party. God damn.
Oh, you gonna be alright, Ronnie?
Girl, it look like you got your ass wet. Now, did you at least pinch the bitch?
Listen, it was fireworks from the beginning of this game when Clemson took an interception by Tua Tagovailoa to the house for a pick six, and man, it was on from then. They beat Alabama's ass from pillar to post. Look, I ain't seen Alabama get beat this bad since the goddamn Civil Rights Act of 1964. I ain't seen Alabama fans this mad since goddamn integration. I tell you what, it was a lot of angry dudes in Alabama last night, and a lot of sister wives got their ass cussed out. Over in the NFL, we find ourselves right in the middle of the playoffs with the divisional rounds going on. But no, all the talk and attention is not on that. Everybody is focusing on the Steel City soap opera, or as my grandma liked to say, the stories. Over with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives.
Now, we all know about the drama with Antonio Brown having his altercation with Big Ben week 17 and didn't play. Well, it has gone further than that. So, Antonio Brown is doing this thing, and sportscaster Ryan Clark came out and said that, hey, Pittsburgh need to do the right thing. They need to get rid of Antonio Brown. He's a distraction. He's causing problems in the locker room. Oh, well, Antonio didn't take too kindly to that shit, and he had some choice words for Ryan Clark, namely calling him an Uncle Tom. Let me just say, first of all, if you're gonna call him something, at least use the right word. Uncle Tom wasn't a bad guy. He was actually a hero, very sympathetic to black people in Harry Beecher Stowe's book, Uncle Tom's Cabin. AB, I think the word you're looking for is a Sambo, but I digress. Anyways, in response to being called a Tom, Ryan Clark had this to say on Twitter, and I quote, "I have a ton of nieces and nephews that I love so much. They call me Ryan. The rest is just the rest. I'll let that be. No one wins here publicly. Let's all keep the same energy all the time. Happy New Year." Now, that seems innocuous enough, but for those of you who don't speak smoke, let me interpret it for you. What he's saying is, okay, you call me Uncle Tom. Yeah, I'm an uncle, but not the kind you talking about. I got nieces and nephews who call me uncle, and I love them very much. But all that shit you talking, you better make sure you got your hands together, because when you see me, it's on. And that's what he's telling you. Elsewhere in the NFL, we have the divisional rounds of the playoffs going on, where there are 4 games this weekend. We have the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the New England Patriots. We have the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the New Orleans Saints. We have the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. And we got the Dallas Cowboys taking on the LA Rams. Now, me personally, I don't have a dog in the fight because my team's pretty much done by goddamn week 9, which still got me pissed off. But if I had to pick somebody to win, I want everybody to win except the New England Patriots and the Dallas Cowboys. For one, I hate New England. Fuck y'all. And for 2, I cannot go another week with you niggas screaming, "We them boys." We them folks that's tired of that shit. Over in the NBA, the Western Conference race is still pretty tight, and without LeBron James, the Los Angeles Lakers just can't get right. They have dropped 5 of the last 7 games while he's been out with an apparent groin injury. And man, let me tell you, they are who we thought they would be without LeBron, and they are struggling. I'm talking about struggling worse than Forrest Whitaker's eye to stay open. They struggling worse than Donald Trump struggles to tell the goddamn truth. They struggling worse than R. Kelly struggles to keep his hands off of children.
Goddamn right.
Don't at me. You know that shit's true. But anyways, as of right now, the Lakers find themselves in the 8th spot of the Western Conference, with Braun expected to be back next Thursday against the Oklahoma City Thunder. But in the meantime, the rest of the team better do something, and do something fast, because LeBron don't like losing and he will trade your ass. You better ask some niggas up in Cleveland. He don't play around. This week's episode was brought to you by Black with No Chaser Radio and their new morning radio show, Coffee Shop Noir, streaming daily from 7 to 10:30 a.m. Now, usually I don't try to be up that early, but my kid's bad as hell and I ain't got no choice. I'll see you guys next week. We've reached the end of another episode of the Shade and Shit Talking Podcast, and as always, I really thank you guys for tuning in. I thank you for the support, the encouragement, the agreements, the disagreements, all of it. I'm here for it, and I hope you here for it, and stay here for it. We're looking forward to a lot of big things, 2019, podcasts, documentaries, new shows, radio, TV, internet, all that. You know, Black with No Chaser, we really coming with it, coming forward, and we are doing this to further improve the diaspora, further improve the platforms for us to tell our stories the way they should be told. And I personally hope that you guys stay tuned and enjoy the ride along with us. Now, we, had a lot going on this week. We talked a lot about R. Kelly and everything in between, and there's been a lot of disagreements, a lot of back and forth, and I encourage each and every one of you all to just take a step back, take a breather, and instead of letting all that's going on create a wider divide between us, we should use all of this as a teaching moment, a learning opportunity, and a way to bring us together and bridge these different gaps. I mean, it's a lot of shit that's happening, a lot that's in our control, a lot that's out of our control. But what we can control is ourselves and our emotions, and not let this shit get the best of us. So, that being said, I encourage each one of you to take care of one another, take care of yourself, practice the idea of saying, "Co for each one, teach one," and let's navigate through this world together as one. Create a stronger sense of community. I'm your boy TK. I appreciate you guys listening to me, and I will talk to you next week.
Oh, thank you.